For the longest time, I kind of skirted away from reactionary content. Like I would very, very rarely do it. But I realized that sometimes making content solely off of yourself is very hard. And since I'm getting back into trying to make content on my gaming channel, um, why the fuck not? There's other channels that do it all the time. Now, I'm not gonna be a solely reactionary channel and stuff like that, but the more content I put out, I feel is better. So this is Monster Hunter Wild changes I am not too happy with. Now, I don't know exactly what the changes are really, because I barely played the demo. Um, but as a person who's been playing Monster Hunter since Monster Hunter, when I said Freedom Unite, it was actually wrong. I was playing Monster Hunter before Freedom Unite. There was one Monster Hunter Freedom Unite was basically a slightly better version of the first game that I played, which was Monster Hunter Freedom, I believe it was called. Which instead of it being 2009, it was like in 2007 Monster Hunter Freedom was out. Um, and this is by a person named Ark. Is that correct? Is it Ark? By Ark, and my man has 19,000 subscribers, so he's doing something right. And this video currently has 1,000 and 1.4 thousand likes, 232 dislikes. Of course it is. Let's get it.
No intro today because I'm getting myself into some spicy business. It feels a bit odd to make my last video of 2024 something that isn't necessarily positive about one of my most beloved
God,
gaming
the porn that's
franchises
gonna
out
come out
there,
of that girl is gonna be
but it would be a
insane.
lie to tell you that I'm happy with everything that Wilds is doing. Now I know that a lot of people look at videos like this and they think that I'm just a hater who's just here to rant, and that's totally not true. Monster Hunter has been one of my favorite games out there even before I started making content, but it also enabled me to make content, so this hobby that I have has been basically made only possible because of Monster Hunter. I'm not expecting you to agree with me, but I am expecting you to be respectful if you do disagree with me, because if you're just calling me a bastard for the simple reason that I prefer something else in a video game, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna tolerate it. I'm not.
You know what? That's a real good stance to have, Playboy. Like sometimes you just need to be that way. There are some people who they just live online. And mind you, this is my gaming channel, and it irks the hell out of me when I see that somebody dislikes a video where all I did was literally put up a video, make a joke, and because I disliked or I wasn't glazing a game that they like, you got to come out of your way to try to dislike a video when there's multiple that you're not even in the majority, you're in the minority. For example, there was an ambulance game that I just played called Ambulance Simulator that has clear optimization issues, has clear bugs that you can see. You're playing a game where you're supposed to be an EMT worker, and there's traffic, and when you turn on the siren, the traffic doesn't even move out of the way. People actually get in your way, and if you collide with them, you lose the game. Now mind you, if you're playing a game where you're driving in a busy city, and traffic won't even move when you turn on the siren, this is what I mean by, and mind you, this game, you say something and you'll find people that dislike it, just like my political channel, which I don't really tell people about my political channel. My political channel, I can literally say something that can literally be like protect children. And that's a sensitive subject. So for you guys who play video games, as I try to keep both the channels separate, you guys who like playing video games, imagine me sitting here saying I'm not religious. I don't care about a lot of shit. I am a live and let live type person. Stay away from children. Creeps, stay away from children. And those are where my channel gets the most dislikes. And it's like, yo, there's some people out there you're never gonna be able to satisfy. Period. And you know what? That's a good fucking stance. Fuck them. Fuck them. If they don't agree with you and they're not coming at you correct, fuck them. Don't they don't matter.
Your daddy and I'm not your mommy. I'm only here to cause reflection upon the Monster Hunter community with the little bit of influence that I do have on this platform. With all of that out of the way, let's start talking about the things that Monster Hunter Wilds is doing that I don't necessarily like. And I'm kicking this off with the topic that I'm possibly most passionate about in this whole video, which is tracking. In Wilds, tracking has been essentially removed. Your sacred just
You know what's funny? When it comes down to tracking, I don't know what this man is gonna say. When it comes down to tracking, I'm gonna let you guys in on a secret. I did not like the idea of Rise. I did not touch Rise. A lot of people said the scout flies were just the same thing as Rise, and these people are delusional as hell. I feel like Games should evolve, and it should feel good as they evolve. Back in my day, we didn't have scout flies. So right now you have people that are used to mounting on animals. Like they say, oh well, the mount in Monster Hunter World is automatic, just like the fucking anime weeb dogs from Rise. No, the anime weeb dog from Rise takes you away from actually hunting. When you're flying across the map, and don't get me wrong, I seen some of the verticality and like the way that the maps were set up in Rise, and it was pretty cool, but it was not my type of game. But when you put everything from a when you're playing Monster Hunter, the idea of hunting is not to be immersive because that's such a fucking game journal cop out. People don't play video games to get immersed. You don't want to get immersed in a zombie outbreak. You don't want to get immersed in a fucking Call of Duty game. You don't want to be in those worlds. You want to play a little bit in those worlds, but you don't want to be immersed. It's stupid. Anyway, so when it comes down to tracking, when I restarted Monster Hunter World, because I just did it for shits and giggles, you could not find the monsters until you hunted and tracked the monsters multiple times. The scout flies wouldn't even tell you the proper area where they were. You actually had to work on it for you to get it to that point. And yes, there are mounts that you can kind of set to find monsters after a while when you unlock them and all of that shit. But that's through progression. You get what I'm saying? And here's the thing: before Scout Flies, which was the evolution of tracking monsters, at least for me, we had paintballs. I don't even think you kids know the fucking horrors of paintballing monsters. Because paintballing wasn't some okay, so Monster Hunter that you guys are playing now, I know the guys who play Rise, you don't really take damage. Everything is anime like, everything is fast. Back in the day, bro, everything was very slow and heavy, and it was made to punish you. When you went to go eat a piece of meat, you had to take out the meat. Chomp, 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 right? Then I can't remember if it's you rose your hand. No, 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 no. Then you rub your stomach, pat your stomach, and then you do this. Was it that, or was it you raise your hands and then you pat your stomach? No, okay. Anyway, you basically disabled your character for like 6 fucking seconds, and there was no quick eater, no none of those skills, none of that. There was none of that, and you were standing still. You couldn't even move, so you wasn't even slowly walking away, right? Whetstones took up inventory. I kid you not. Whetstones took up. There were different type of pickaxes, and they could break. I'm not shitting you. I'm not. Listen, you had armor that had negative stats on them. They weren't all positive. So listen, some things should be left in the past, but you should appreciate the games that came before. That's all I'm saying.
knows where the monster is, and you can just press a button and it will run to the monster automatically, which is actually a pretty good feature. It saves you, from having to hold down buttons for long periods of time in the open map. But this game is called Monster Hunter, and part of hunting is tracking your targets. No, I'm not saying something like the paintball system should come back. Let's be honest, paintball is called Monster from having to hold down buttons for long. It will run to the monster automatically, which prove your sacred just knows where the monster is, and you can just press a button and it will run to the monster automatically, which is actually a pretty good feature. It saves you, from having to hold down buttons for long periods of time in the open map. But this game is called Monster Hunter, and part of
Yeah,
hunting
I'm
is
not a fan.
tracking
I'm not
your
a fan of the
targets.
secret.
No, I'm
I'm
not
not gonna
saying
lie to
something
you.
like the
I'm not. I
paintball
don't
system
like the
should come back.
idea
Let's be
of
honest, paintball
fast
sucked
speeding
just
towards.
as
Oh,
much
that's a
as it
nice
was
weapon.
in
That's a
Death
whole ass
Stranding. It just made no
uh,
sense. A game that actually did this really
cooking
well was
knife.
Monster Hunter World, because Hunter.
I'm not a fan of auto, like making things automatic in a Monster Hunter game. I'm just not. The whole aspect of Monster Hunter is to hunt monsters, and I should be able to tell the differences between hunter skills, even if they all were wearing the same armor. And I know that that doesn't make a lot of sense to some people, but when we were playing back in the day, um, and I had to teach because I raised Monster Hunter players. Um, we had to learn how monsters move. We knew that monsters even moved in a certain degrees, right? So they would only move in like I forgot exactly how many degrees it was, but it was like they would move in like quarter degrees, except for the fucking Yangaruga. Fuck that guy. That guy broke the mold, and he's always been an asshole anyway. But most monsters can only move in that degree, and then you had to when we had to explain that also monsters target certain people, and that's so everybody gets a turn. Once you start breaking certain things down, it makes the game it's like a meta game into it. But again, when it came down to the armors, or just it's all about the hunt. That's really what it is. And these Monster Hunter games that's coming out, that's putting elements in the game where it's taking away from the hunting, is just fucking weird. This is the shit that I saw with Rise. This is one of the big reasons why I didn't want to play Rise. When I saw people jumping on monsters and controlling them with their I guess the wire bugs, that shit was a huge turnoff for me. Now, again, just because I don't like it doesn't mean that it can't exist. Just like Monster Hunter Stories. I haven't played it, don't care for it, but it can exist. You know what I'm saying? The wonderful thing about gaming is every game can exist, even games you don't like. It's not for me, but it might be for you. But if I'm going to play a Monster Hunter game, I want to be hunting the monster. When we played World, again, there was a comment just recently where somebody just sat there and was like, "Oh, what did this fucking person say?" This person said, they can't just update World. And again, I'm not sitting here saying update World. I think that they get it confused when a person praises World, because you got these people who think that, oh, my baby's first Monster Hunter was Monster Hunter World. No, Monster Hunter World was the Monster Hunter that put Monster Hunter 1 on the fucking block where it fucking deserves as a franchise that people know in America, as it should be, instead of a cult favorite. But it is the natural organic progression of what Monster Hunter should be. Whether you say it's too easy or too hard considering the old Monster Hunters, what are you going to tell me? I'm a second generation fucking hunter. I know my shit. I know my shit. Monster Hunter World, I'm not glazing Monster Hunter World. If right now they made an expansion for Monster, if they said Monster Hunter Wilds was coming out, if they said Monster Hunter Wilds was being delayed for another year, but then said we're also releasing an expansion for Monster Hunter World right now um that's going to introduce 10 new monsters. I guarantee you everybody that would have been upset would have automatically had caught amnesia, like they was a protagonist of a brand new video game and lost all their power-ups, like Metroid. Or they just forget how to do everything. They'd be like, oh shit, what? Okay, well then fuck it then. Shit, you can hold it for 2 more years. Just make another expansion. We don't give a shit. Monster Hunter World has the skeleton. I'm not sitting there saying we can't move on. What I'm sitting here saying is if you're gonna move on to a new Monster Hunter with a new goddamn engine, at least have your engine running stable frames. Monster Hunter World was just fucking fine. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. And before anyone sits there and says, oh, well, they're moving on, they can't just keep updating Monster Hunter World. Capcom is notorious for using the same engine in their video games. Street Fighter, Super Street Fighter, Ultra Street Fighter. Shut the fuck up, man. Let's continue.
And part of hunting is tracking your targets. No, I'm not saying something
I'm not being disrespectful to the person that commented. The person said that maybe my CPU was bottlenecking. They also said that maybe they think my CPU is bottlenecking because my rig may be old because I bought the laptop a year ago. And I'm gonna just let that sit there for a moment. I'm gonna just let that simmer for you guys to think about that for a moment. The reason why my FPS is not stable in a game that was in production for over 4 years is because the CPU that I have, my rig that I have, I bought a year ago. And I probably need to put on some thermal paste. Okay.
Like, the paintball system should come back. Let's be honest, paintball sucked just as much as flexing after healing. It just made no sense. A game that actually did this really well was Monster Hunter World, because the tracking system with the scout flies there made it so that you had to track the monster at least a few times before you could already tell where it was in the map automatically. I just
Yup.
think it adds a really nice extra layer of immersion, and Wild seems like is really going for it because even the mining animations are just so detailed. And like I said, it's not necessarily like the system hasn't already been made, because the one in World was perfect. I mean, if you wanted to
See,
find that monster, you would be rewarded for
you
getting
can't say that
to the
though.
point where you would never have to track that monster again. And even back in Rise, I really missed it because, you know, the Kahoot just told you wherever the monsters were at all times, and that just, you know, felt a little bit meh.
And that was a big reason why people didn't like Rise, including myself. When you take away from hunting in a game literally called Monster Hunter, it is a problem. When you try to make a game casual friendly, you're going to lose not only your hardcore players, not only your loyal players, but the casuals are going to drop it as well. It's not to sit there and say game franchises shouldn't be trying to bring in new players, but it is a stupid, stupid gamble that has proven time and time again. You need them all. You need everyone. You can't make everybody happy, but you don't go against your people who's been with you for years.
It just felt rewarding to track the monster for a while when I was in a grinding session, and then eventually I just get to a point where I know where the monster is right from the get-go. And I totally get it, it's being removed for convenience because Wilds has much bigger maps, so tracking might be a bit harder there, but even so, I just wanted tracking. I feel like it removes a certain level of immersion that previously was kind of annoying with the paintballs, but with the scout flies, it actually made it pretty rewarding, so I miss it. The second topic is probably like the hottest take, because this is what kind of splits the community into 50-50, which
Oh
is
shit.
friendly fire. To me, friendly fire is just
Hold on. What's going on with friendly fire? I'm trying to think about friendly fire. Getting staggered in the middle of a combo is annoying, but it is a necessary evil, especially if somebody's out of position. Like if you're gonna play on a team, one of the most beautiful things is seeing you and a friend and whatever team that you are in being a well-oiled machine and just going to town on a fucking monster and just really showing off your fucking skills. But when you're playing with somebody who's an asshole, if while they're playing, they're tripping you up, and I'm speaking to you longsword users, you're gonna find a lot of people who are basic bitches, and they're gonna all gravitate to longsword, and all that they used to do is trip people up and be in the bad positions. And don't get me wrong, wherever you can attack, go attack. And you got some assholes that'll sit there and be like, you should only be attacking the back legs. Listen, go get your hits in. But if you're using a longsword, you should be trying to sever the tail because it is a hard to reach place, considering the fact that a hammer user should be hitting the monster in the face to try to stun them, or I guess stubbing their toes, right? Whatever. Because you can smash instead of sever, you can smash. Sure. But you know, and also it's fun. Friendly Fire's fun. I remember when I had a friend who he was learning how to play Monster Hunter, I switched from using longsword because I was more. This was way back then. There was a kid that he was not comfortable. He was always nervous playing. He was always on edge playing, but he loved Monster Hunter. I watched that boy grow. He started with a longsword. I had a longsword. I switched to a great sword so that he would start to grow into his own. You know what I'm saying? Eventually, he started using great sword. Now, mind you, this was a person I raised that boy. Anyway, this was a person that when my PSP died, because back in the day we didn't have digital kids, we had small little CD UMD discs in the PlayStation, and if that bitch got a scratch, oh boy. But anyway, my PSP broke or some shit happened, and I just watched him continue to hunt monsters that I never even seen. Eventually, like he eventually got there. Mind you, this was a motherfucker that wasn't willing to bust a group in a bust a fruit in a grape, bust a grape in a fruit fight. So it's good to see it, but Friendly Fire was fun because I used to, well, not in that game, but back in the day, like after we hunt the monster, we used to hit each other. You know what I'm saying? And also in the Monster Hunter world, you was able to launch your friends, and then you would get mount attacks. So I don't understand like that. What if the person's dizzy? That was another thing that was important. If the monster made you dizzy, your friend can friendly fire you to get you out of daze. The fuck?
just fine. In fact, one of my fondest memories was when I started playing Monster Hunter World. A friend of mine would play Greatsword and he would just launch me into the air where I would be able to do aerial attacks so that we could get a mount. But even removing launching and keeping the flinching, I think it's still something valuable because
Oh my God. And if you really wanted to style on people, this is how you know when you got a good team. When your team is not bitching, when they see a great horn user, when they see a great horn user, and they respect their great horn user. Hey, yo, what is the great horn user doing? I don't know. Let him rock. Let him cook. Yo, he's really doing something over there. Let him cook. Let the great horn user cook. That's it. Oh, you see him jazzing in the background? Let him cook. Oh, he just knocked you off a cliff? Let him cook. Again, only people who are little shit stains don't really know, but if you know, you know. Again, it's funny as hell. Oh, he just hit you? Well, he was doing a solo. That's your fault. That's your fault for being in the way. Let him cook.
it teaches people how to work as a team. And that's what the multiplayer aspect because it teaches people moving launching and keeping the flinching. I think it's still something valuable because it teaches people how to work as a team. And that's what the multiplayer aspect should be. It shouldn't be like maximum efficiency, everyone playing their own style. It should be everyone coming together to hunt the monster as a team. The closest comparison that I have is within shooters, more specifically a shooter like PUBG. And this third-person tactical shooter battle royale, whatever the fuck people want to label this game anymore. Seriously though, I reinstalled the game to get a little bit of footage for this part of the video, and what am I looking at? The point being that in this shooter, if you shot your allies, you risked killing them, and if you kill them, then you would be a man down on your squad, which basically spelled death unless you were really good at the game. And that's why I think it's valuable in Monster Hunter, because it teaches people proper positioning, and it teaches another skill level, which is, will your big move, like, I don't know, a gun lances Wyvern Fire, hit the monster and your team, or can you make it hit just the monster? Oh, but Ark, I don't like getting flinched. I just don't like it. I think it's annoying, and I just want.
Then you're a fucking casual. That's really what it is. You're a casual, and you don't belong in playing Monster Hunter. Gatekeep franchises, guys. What the fuck? Yo, the same person sitting there saying they don't like being flinched is the same person that is jumping that would play the story of Monster Hunter with full Guardian armor or whatever. Was it Guardian or Defender armor? I think they're both the same shit. If you guys don't know what that is, Guardian armor and Defender armor was armor that they made so that you can rush through Monster Hunter and basically just face tank hunts in Monster Hunter. You were a bona fide bum if you put on that goddamn armor. But basically, if you wanted to breeze through the main story of Monster Hunter, you would put on that armor and you could just face tank, which showed when these same people would be playing and they would jump into your hunt and parasite off of people who were actually trying to play the game of Monster Hunter. So you would have these people with full defender or guardian armor jump in to a hunt where they're not supposed to be in. They don't know positioning. Positioning is so fucking important in Monster Hunter games. And if you don't know positioning, all you need to know is the basics. Dragging hunting formation, meaning always be behind the monster's foot. Unless he knows how to stomp, then you're in trouble. Or he can fart, then you're in trouble. Or he shoots beams out of his ass, then you're in trouble. All of these things have existed in Monster Hunter. In which way, shape, or form. But again, standard dragon fighting formation, you should always be behind the dragon's left foot. But yeah, that people like you're catering to fucking casuals, Capcom.
Want to play multiplayer for the social aspect, but getting flinched and launched is just pissing me off. If you're the kind of person that sees flinching and launching as a problem, then I'm sorry to tell you this, but I already see 3 different solutions for your problem. The number 1 solution is that if you want to hunt for maximum efficiency, do it alone. Or
They won't.
do it with a pre-made team so that everyone can be in sync. I just get confused by people who say that they want maximum efficiency, but they go online and hunt with randoms. Like, do you want to socialize or do you want maximum efficiency? Because those two are gonna clash. Or
You know
maybe
what's
you don't
crazy?
have to. Who says that everyone needs to dog?
Whoa, what is going on with the life bar?
It's down. There are still
Don't like that. Don't like that. Don't like that. I hope that shit is a gauge or that shit is on charge or something like that, or you get charges to using that. I do not like the idea that you get knocked down and the animal gets picked up. That animal better be in danger throughout the hunt. That better be something that you can't keep doing. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. That shit just gave me flashbacks to Rise, where a person got hit in the air and then did like a fucking combo breaker wire bug attack and then flew back down on the monster. I do not like that. I do not like that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm like an old man screaming at the sky right now. Get off my lawn. I don't like that.
Pause, there are still wings. Go after those. Don't always go for the head. Proper positioning is a huge bit of skill expression in Monster Hunter multiplayer. It shows that you know the monster's weaknesses and you also realize the strength and downfalls of your allies. And before Lance players say you don't understand because I play Lance and you don't play Lance, I swear to God, let me just tell you this right now. I played loads of Lance during Sunbreak and Iceborne and I didn't have this issue because I positioned well. And in some cases,
In the end, my friend who started off as a longsword user and then eventually he got to the point that he would hunt the Tiger X with me with in full death stenches armor. Um Eventually we started hunting Tiger X's with great swords. We learned exactly how the Tiger X would react when it went in rage mode, how much time we had to hit it. And this was before going online and this was before going online and studying it. We saw a YouTube video. I forgot what group it was called. Maybe it was called Fatalis, Team Fatalis. And they were like making music videos, but also with Monster Hunter. And I just remember seeing them do that. And I just was like, I like that shit. Now, we didn't study the video, but we saw the video one or two times and said, that's what we want to do. And then he started doing that shit with me. Eventually, he ended up becoming a Lance user. And it fit his personality perfectly. There's no such thing as a tank in Monster Hunter, at least not back in the day. You survived one or two attacks and you were dead. There was no such thing as armor that allowed you to survive last hits and all of this, final stands. No, you died in two hits. That was it. One or two hits. It doesn't matter how good your armor was. If you were fighting a monster, certain monsters, it was one or two hits. So yeah, and we're talking about solid hits. We're not talking about getting smudged on us, like getting smushed, getting winged. We're talking solid hits. You were dead. You were dead. But it's funny because I had a friend who was really boasting. Like this dude was always cocky. And I remember him being like, "What weapon does no one use?" And we was like, "Well, we haven't experimented with the sword and shield." My man pulled out the sword and shield and was like, "I do everything." My man was sitting there trying to block the hardest attack and get it set back. And mind you, he was like, "Yo, the idea of getting hit and you're blocking an attack and you're flying back and you're grabbing onto the ground and you're sliding back like an anime character, that's all me, baby." That was the coolest thing about Monster Hunter was, again, its expression. Its expression. But if everybody's always at the best at all times, it's kind of stupid.
cases you will run into some dickheads that are just there to troll and flinch you, and those are not real hunters. Those are just people who are bored out of their mind because they have a boring life. Like resorting to online trolling for literally no reason is pretty cringe, and honestly,
Eventually, the sword and shield dude, he eventually tried to impress me because eventually I changed to go to switch axe. And he didn't know I was a switch axe user, but he ended up using the charge blade. Is it the charge blade? The charge sword or whatever like that? Though, and the reason why he liked that weapon is because of the massive damage. Even though it was high risk, he liked the idea of basically I'm gonna pump out some like serious fucking damage, and I don't care. It's gonna happen whether you like it or not to the monster. That's what he turned out to be.
the Monster Hunter community isn't perfect, so you might run into some of these guys, but at some point, it's just like any kind of other type of confrontation. Just leave.
Fun fact: you would think that in this anime that I'm explaining to you about Monster Hunter, that the one who was full of himself was the dick compared to the one that I trained and raised. The one that I trained and raised turned his back on me and did me filthy. The one who was full of himself, who wanted to be the main protagonist, actually bought me my first Monster Hunter game.
Leave the area. Don't go around subjecting yourself to this kind of stuff, bro. And the last solution I see to this problem is the fact that there are jewels
Is that the
to
Magala?
prevent friendly fire. You don't even
That's
have to go as far as
something
using
Magala,
something like
right?
shockproof, which is I don't know if it's a level 2 or 3 or 4.
Then
Just
wasn't he
use
giving
something
other
like
monsters
one. You can
COVID
just
back in
use
the
it level
day?
1 flinch free and you will not be getting flinched. But come on, Ark, do you really think it's fair that I should be using valuable slots in my build to avoid flinching? Yeah. I think it's perfectly fine. I
Yeah.
started using flinch free level 1 when we started doing Elytra and Iceborne because we have to dogpile on the head to break the horns, and well, as a sword and shield player, I was getting flinched out of perfect rush consistently. But a level 1 deco fixed the problem for me, so I don't see what the big deal is about slotting in a level 1 deco. It's a level 1. In my eyes, I think a good solution would be to have lobby leaders decide if friendly fire should be toggled on and off. I think that
Nope.
basically solves it. Some
No.
might argue that that splits the monster hunter
Yeah,
community.
that's
I
stupid.
say it puts the eggs in the right basket. Like,
Nope,
yeah,
that's
maybe for
dumb.
you, flinching and launching is just the most annoying thing. You don't want to deal with it, and you don't want to use any of the 3 previous solutions that I presented. But to me, flinching and launching is fun. It's an inconvenience that I find necessary to push teamwork and multiplayer, not just the solo play style that everyone seems to be going for. And if you take a look at how they're implementing friendly fire into Wilds, that actually just removed the launching, which is a big middle finger to that side of the fun, and it's also a big middle finger to the people that asked friendly fire to be removed completely. Also, yes.
Has anyone seen the meme of the dude who sacrificed his life to save his friends? I forgot what monster it was that stunned the whole team, but one guy, and I forgot what weapon it was, but I know that he launched his entire team, and then the monster just like smashed into this dude. They played like some really sad fucking music on top of it, and it was like never forget.
This happened, but Tokuro wasn't flipping the audience off, he was just adjusting his glasses. So the flinching and launcher enjoyers have actually lost half of why they want this in the first place, and the people who hated it got the worst end of the stick. Literally. So yeah, in my ideal world, flinching would be something that maybe would be decided by the lobby leader, but in a more ideal world, people would just either not play online with randoms when they want to be maximally efficient, or they would just be better at positioning, or they would just use the jewels that allow them to not have to deal with it. Next up is random decos. Now this is something that really didn't please me in World and Iceborne. I don't think that the RNG aspect of decos has ever pleased me, be it in World or Rise or 4U or GU. I'd rather have a system where some rare decos are incredibly difficult to craft, but if you do want them, you're gonna have to work for them, and it is guaranteed that you will receive them. Because I don't like the end game of Jewels and Iceborne, you know, I don't like having to do a Temper Teostra 50 times and hoping that I'll get 5 level 12 decos. And Sunbreak had a system where you could kind of craft the decos themselves, which I found to be a lot easier because I was
Just for you guys to understand, I am that grizzled hunter in the Rathalos armor. Is he or in the Raytheon armor set? I don't like the new systems. I still use the the basic level armor. I used to use a greatsword, but as I gotten older, I now use a longsword. I can't move like I used to, but I'm still a force to be reckoned with.
personally getting a lot
I love the fact that they introduced the fucking protagonist from the old Monster Hunters the way that they did.
better charms in Sunbreak than I was getting decos in Iceborne. But then the skill bloat in Sunbreak was insane. I mean, you could basically max out 17 different skills, and you also had access to that fucking Curio augmentation, which was the worst thing. It drove me nuts. So yeah, random decos for me, I don't really like them. I would much prefer a system where you have to grind for them and make it difficult, you know, make it so that the end game really makes you feel it. Basically, I just hope that the expansion for Wilds that is coming, because we all know we're gonna get one, I hope it has a better end game system than just doing one quest over and over and over in hopes to get a level 12 jewel, or to just spend a fuck ton of time grinding anomalies so that you can shove them into a menu and hopefully get a skill that isn't trash. And the final thing that I want to talk about is the weapon balancing. Now, I don't know why people have this opinion that weapon balancing in PvE games isn't important, because it fucking is. Especially when we live in a world where games with hard endgame bosses are consistently getting asked to nerf these bosses rather than people just adapting. I'm just saying, if I manage to take down Concert Radon pre-nerf, then anybody should, because I am fucking bad at Elden Ring. But when it comes to weapon
I don't know, bro. You was parrying like a boss. The reason why balancing is so important in Monster Hunter is because not every weapon should be doing the same amount. You should not be able to do the same things. I'm sorry, a charge. What is it? Charge sword? What the fuck is that thing called? I always get it wrong because I don't respect it because I'm a switch axe player. I don't think. What is it? The Switch sword? Monster Hunter? What is it? I forgot what it's called. Nope. Nope, not the. I use the Switch Axe, not the Switch Axe. The Charge Blade, sorry. The Charge Blade did a lot of damage. As a Switch Axe user, my peak is supposed to be when I get the gauge up and use the sword version of the Switch Axe. But the good players who use the Switch Axe, when you're good at using the Switch Axe, you become something we call the Swag Axe user, where you're doing good damage no matter what stance you're in, whether it be the weakened but longer range axe form, or the more powerful, harder punching, but shorter range sword form. Dual sword users are not supposed to be doing massive damage as they spinning around like a goddamn character from Attack on Titan. Levy spin, I forgot what that shit was called, as it's spinning around as tops. Back then, what they really would do is they would have high sharpness and they applied a whole bunch of status effects or a lot of elemental damage. Once they go into that demon dance form, they went fucking crazy. And back then, I remember when I found out that Kushladora, which is an elder dragon, which is like a wind elder dragon, and it had an aura of wind around it. And every time you tried to attack it, you would get blown away. When the dual sword user hit that demon stance, he negates the wind cancellation and he just went to town. And the funny thing about it is Kushladora is weak against poison. And if you poison Kushladora, his aura weakens. So a dual sword user, dual blade user shines in a fight against those type of monsters. Small things like that are important. A hunting horn player should not be doing as much damage as a greatsword player, even though now greatsword players don't do as much damage as they kind of used to, which is weird. They're more hit and runny, which, yeah, I guess, sure, it's always been that way. But I mean, you now got a mount that you can run around with. So I don't know. I'm not exactly sure exactly. Let me just put it like that.
Been balancing in Monster Hunter, it's always been a hot topic that people don't necessarily agree on all the time. With the biggest target of criticism being obviously the longsword. We all clown on the weebs that like the longsword. I myself do it all the time, despite making
It's not wrong with bread and butter. The longsword is Ryu. Ryu in Monster Hunter. I'm sorry, Ryu in Street Fighter is the fucking, what is it? What was that fucking Street Fighter meme with Ryu? Hey, it's Ryu from Streets. I like warm bread and toast. What was this shit he said? He said something like some generic shit. Yeah, what is that fucking I'm Ryu from Streets? Ryu from Streets. What is the meme? My favorite thing is jumping into lake fairs, lake fairs, stale bread, water without ice, right? It's okay, but the thing is, I'm seeing changes in the longsword with these new Monster Hunter games. Like even World, you was able to do some cool shit with the longsword. You've always been able to be pretty cool with the longsword, so let them rock.
video where I've already explained my position on the longsword. Now I know you might not have watched that video or you might not make plans to watch that video, so
you know what's funny?
I like longsword. I honestly had a lot of fun using
the longsword. Weebness has been overtaken by that. What is that? The insect glaive? Is it called insect glaive? That weapon that you just got people spinning around like fucking helicopters, which is ironic because they're fighting for mounts, but the most damage they do is on the ground. So you have a weapon that specializes in being in the air, but to do the most damage, you're on the ground. Make it make sense.
longsword into Elatrion solo, but ever since Rise and Sunbreak, it just feels like longsword gets so many defensive options that the weapon just starts feeling way too safe. Adding hyper armor at the beginning of Helmbreaker and the range and hyper armor on the Spirit Release, which is the follow-up move, it's just overkill. Oh no, but Arik, listen, it adds skill because now you can use it to counter roars and stuff, but dude, you don't need that. You already have Foresight Slash and you already have the Sheath Weep thing. It's not damage that I'm complaining about, it's just that they make the weapon feel too safe, and that draws out some of the fun, because if I have a defensive option for every single move the monster's gonna throw at me, then I'm just kind of bored. I'm not saying that the longsword doesn't require skill. Players like Peppo will make longsword look absolutely incredible, and most people will look at it and go, well, I could pull that off. No, you couldn't. You absolutely longsword god, and you couldn't pull off what he does. My main criticism,
goddamn, the Glazer, who was that dude?
Doesn't feel too safe, or it requires so much skill, when in reality, it just doesn't. It's like Gunlance, right? Gunlance in Wilds is looking so damn good, it might just be an S tier weapon, but in World and especially base Rise, like, holy shit was this weapon suffering. But even with all these good additions in Wilds, you will still have to use your brain because, like, you don't get hyper armor when you use Wyvern Fire, so you better be pointing that shield the right way. I'm not saying all of this as a longsword hater. I like playing longsword. It's been fun, but sometimes it just feels like the weapon has way too much going on. In fact, it wouldn't even take that much for it to be fixed for me. I think if you
Yo, you know what's crazy? Could you you see all of these particles on the ground? Could you imagine if this was Nergigante? And these were his spikes coming off? Like you're playing in a field and the field is completely empty of his spikes, and the more you fight him, the more these spikes are coming out. Yo, that would be sick.
Foresight Slash so that you can't trigger it even if you used it way too early. Remove the hyper armor from Helmbreaker and Spirit Release.
God damn, could you imagine the FPS on that bitch though? Well, you know, if you actually get a new CPU because your computer's a year old, then you that's the reason why you need a RT GT VTX 24,042K edition to get 30 FPS.
Because if Sword and Shield doesn't get hyper armor while using Perfect Rush, then Longsword certainly doesn't need it here. And make the weapon punish you if you whiff, like how in Iceborne, if you whiffed an EI slash counter, you'd lose a level of gauge, and that's something that needs to come back in my opinion, if it's already not implemented. I don't actually remember. But finally, the reason as to why I'm a bit triggered when people talk about Longsword, it's mainly because Longsword isn't the weapon that dominates the damage charts, it's the ranged weapons, specifically the bow. Yeah, Longsword might be the more popular weapon because it's so anime, but dude, the ranged weapons have been getting away with war crimes. I'll be completely honest with you.
And it shouldn't be that way.
I usually only play heavy bowgun as my ranged weapon if I need it, but I'm kind of happy to see that bow is getting toned down a little bit. I think it's gonna make bow players just that much more impressive for me. Also, I'm sorry Swax Bros, but I think we got a little bit too much going on with the weapon after that last community update, and I don't know if we needed all of that. I'm just saying. This is especially weird when you look at how they are changing the insect glaive. I mean, they gave it an offset attack, and they even made it so that the bounce is actually more useful than before because
that is disgusting.
The more successful bounces you get, and I think it stacks twice. But this is about as many words as I have to criticize Wilds and its peculiar additions slash changes. At the end of the day, I still love Monster Hunter, and I still love provoking this reflection upon the community to see who agrees with me and why, and who doesn't agree with me and also why. And I just want to say that just because I'm a creator,
oh no,
doesn't necessarily mean that I have the
what the fuck is that?
Is above anyone else's. It just means that
that's pretty
to share my opinion and see who agrees and who doesn't. And I think this helps the community
that's pretty
each other a bit better because we can be respectful even if we disagree. We don't have to start fucking drama in the comments. It's a fucking video game, guys. Relax. And more importantly, I think it helps the devs. The community managers do watch content like this, maybe not specifically my channel, but maybe they do, and this is important so that they can see how the community feels. Not just me as the creator, but you guys. They will read your comments. So, you know, do your best to showcase your opinion. But that's about it. I wanted to leave my remaining bit of criticism for Wilds before it comes out here in 2024, because in 2025 I'm trying to work on some cooler projects, and you guys are already aware of some of what that is. Feel free to like the video and drop some criticism towards the content that I make. Always looking forward to reading what you guys say. It helps me become a better creator. And that's been all from me. Stay safe, and until we meet again.
Pretty goddamn good. I think voices like this need to exist, even though it's weird because a lot of these, how do I put this? A lot of these people who are trying to be the loudest voice in these communities, they tend to just be like fanboys or glazers. They'll accept anything. It doesn't matter what it is. They'll accept anything, and they expect you to no longer have a voice or you not to have an opinion or anything like that, and just to accept slop. And we've seen what happens to games or media and things like this when people just accept slop. The product gets worse and worse. Again, this is just me saying it. I honestly think, you know, games are gonna have changes. You know, like I'm gonna play this game even though there are some things I don't like, and that's okay. You don't have to like everything in a video game, but you need to let people have their voices, especially people who's been playing this game longer than you have. I don't think that it's fair to sit there. Listen, if somebody's putting in that work, you should not be getting on them. If they put in 100 hours, they put in 200 hours, they put in 500 hours in a video game, and they have an opinion, You should be able to respect their opinion as long as they're not shitting on everybody else for having opinions. That's how I realistically look at it. But when somebody can criticize something, if you don't like their criticism of a game, turn them off. Just like he said in the beginning, I'm not your mom or your dad, and I'm not putting no energy to it. That's how we should be about it. It's really that simple. Especially when we're coming from a place where we want the game to succeed. Anyway, that's the video. Catch you guys next time. I think I'm actually gonna play Monster Hunter. I'm gonna actually play Wild Monster Hunter Wild, the demo, because I believe the beta's out again. And who knows? I might just end up getting a deluxe version of it. Who knows? Anyway, that's the video. Do I need to buy a new computer? Because now the 500 GPU's out. We should not be buying brand new computers every single year. That's fucking insane. Game developers or publishers should not be forcing brand new graphic cards on video games. That's just not fit. It's not right. It's evil, actually. Anyway, catch you guys next time.